Well, hello, this is Jeff Gaudiosi, and you're on MisplacedStraws.com, where music comes to life. And my guest today is the vocalist of one of my favorite bands ever. Kansas is about to celebrate its 50th anniversary with a major tour, and they have a new compilation out entitled Another Fork in the Road 50 Years of Kansas. It's my pleasure to welcome Ronnie Platt. Welcome, Ronnie.
Jeff, thank you so much for having me, and I'm really digging your guitar collection in back of you there.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. So let's start with you. You've been in the band since 2014. You
Yeah.
were on two great studio records, 2016's The Prelude Implicit, and actually the record that was my 2020 record of the year here on Misplaced Straws, The Absence of Presence. How did you first get hooked up with the band?
I first got hooked up by being a fan my entire life, and it was kind of like a prerequisite to any cover band that I was in my entire life. If I'm gonna sing, we got to do some Kansas, you know. So just a huge fan my entire life, and then kind of strange how my from '87 to '90, I had a band called Drama, and the drummer's son has ended up being Phil Ehart's drum tech. So there's a little bit of connection there. And then, of course, in 2007, I became the lead singer of Shooting Star from 2007 to 2011. And, we did some work with Kansas. We did a couple shows. And so there was a little, elbow rubbing there. And then it really is a wild story how a very good friend of mine, Dina, messaged me one day and said, "Did you see this?" And it was the announcement of Steve's retirement. And the band was in the middle of a tour, and you automatically, at least me, I automatically thought that they had to been working with someone for a while. They're in the middle of a tour. I'm sure they're going to seamlessly make a transition from Steve to the new singer. Little did I know that was going to be me. Uh, and just on a whim, I contacted Rich through Facebook and said, "Rich, Ronnie Platt from Shooting Star, give me some consideration." Jeff, that's all I wrote. And the very next day, I heard from Rich. I was just about to walk out the door, check my messages, and here, it's Rich Williams. If you get this within the next hour and a half, we're about to go on stage in Houston. Give me a call. I call Rich, kind of like freaking out. I'm like, okay, is this real, And next day, talked to Phil, which was a Friday. Monday, they flew me down to meet with them in Atlanta, and they were very upfront. You're not coming to audition. We've seen you sing. We know you could sing your butt off. We just want to know if you're a nice guy, if you're going to get along with everyone in the band, and if you've watched the documentary Hired Gun, you know how important
Yeah.
that is. And came back to Chicago 4 hours later. Next day, I'm in my truck delivering corrugated in the beautiful streets of Chicago, and open up my email, and there's the magical email. Phil Ehart, congrats, you got the job. The band is pumped, and it's been 1,000 miles an hour ever since.
Mm. And when you step into such a legendary band, unfortunately, I think you have to face that skepticism of the fan base. And
Oh,
this isn't the
absolutely.
first time Kansas recorded without Steve. John Elefante did Vinyl Confessions and Drastic Measures in the early 80s. But what was it like for you stepping into Steve's incredible vocal shoes? Did it feel like it took a while for the fan base to embrace you, or were you comfortable right from the beginning?
That's where I am so fortunate. Uh, but one of the unfortunate things is right before my first gig, I happened to catch Behind the Music with Styx, and they were interviewing Lawrence,
Hmm.
and he was talking about how he was with the band a year, and the audience still wasn't too fond to him. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm taking Steve's place. And I've always said that the Kansas fan is the intense listener.
Mhm.
You know, Kansas isn't the kind of music you just throw on for background music at a party. You know, I mean, most Kansas fans, they listen to the music and they listen intently, and,
Mm.
you're getting into the music because, I mean, that's what the music commands. And, here I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? And just from day one, I mean, I said to myself, if I win half the fans over, I'm going to count my blessings. And you always have your naysayers and your diehard, but right now, in my eyes, I would say I've won 90% of the Kansas fans over, and thank God for that. And the success of the band the last 8.5 years has shown that.
Yeah, and the band tours relentlessly. The 50th anniversary tour is just announced, and one
Right.
thing I love is that you guys use the whole catalog when you tour. Every tour is different. I think there are so many bands where it's the same songs year after year after year.
Yeah.
And I talked about this with Tom a little while back when I interviewed him on the Leftoverture tour. You guys pulled out one of my favorite songs ever, Taking in the View.
Yeah.
As new members, do you guys see the body of work differently than like Phil or Rich or even Billy? I mean, are there songs where you guys say, "Hey, we should play that. We haven't done it in forever."
Oh my gosh,
Mm.
I've been saying that to Phil forever. I suggest songs, and what a good problem to have.
Yeah.
To have such a massive library of music to pull from. And these are not 3-minute long
Mm.
Beatles songs.
Mhm.
I mean, we're working on one song now. That's a little on the long side. I'm not going to give it away on the new tour. But when you're doing songs that are 7, 8, 9 minutes long, holy good God, that's really something.
Mm.
But the joke I've always said is I could never make the set list up because our show would be 5 hours long. Because and that's the honest to God truth. Because I look through the anthology of Kansas, and it's like I mean, I see so many songs that I would love to do that I still haven't done with the band.
Mm.
And we've pretty much have mixed it up over the time that I've been in the band. We've tried to mix it up and, do some of the deep cut stuff. And, doing Leftoverture in its entirety was great, and Point of No Return
Mhm.
in its entirety is great. But the wild thing too, the perspective is this massive library of music to choose from, and here I get in the band and we still do 2 more studio albums to add to that library. That's pretty intense.
Mm. Now, the first part of the 50th anniversary celebration is the new collection, Another Fork in the Road, and it's an incredible set. Like 40 songs from throughout the band's history, but it's far more and far deeper than just a greatest hits package. How was it put together? Did everybody in the band sort of have a say of, I think this song should be included? Was it just, Phil? How did that all come together?
No, we actually had Inside Out make the choices there because, uh, God, I mean, everybody has their, and I'm talking about just within the band,
Mm.
everybody has their favorite
Mm.
songs, and it's really a push and pull thing, because you know some some guys like this song, but I, and let me tell you, I love them all, but I mean, I have some ones that are just extreme favorites that
Yeah.
are different from maybe Billy's extreme
Mm.
favorites or
Mm.
Tom's, you know. So it's good that we had Inside Out make that choice
Mm.
and really uh, try to grasp a concept of the history of the band and just going through all the songs through time uh, from the very first album to now.
Yeah, and kind of putting you on the spot. If you had to pick one song that, okay, next time we play live, we're playing this. What's it going to be?
Oh my goodness. Ah, that's tough. I mean, just now, 10 songs went through my
Yeah,
head.
exactly.
Really, uh,
Yeah.
really. I love everything on Absence.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
uh, uh, Left Overture. We did that in its entirety. Point we did in our in its entirety. I can't even talk. Excuse me.
Mhm.
Uh, Gosh, uh, I wouldn't mind visiting Lamplight Symphony again. What a
Mhm.
great tune, great story, very dynamic music. But gosh, that's the joke is it's like asking someone which one is your
Yeah.
favorite kid. I mean that is the greatest parallel of all
Yeah.
time. It's like, hey Ron, what's your favorite Kansas
Mm,
song? Well, I'm not,
mm,
Wayward Son? Oh, yeah.
mm,
But, there's, 20 more on the same
mm,
level.
mm.
So it's hard. It's
Well,
hard.
I
And
mean, it kind of
I'm
along
sorry.
so it's kind of along those lines, I love the reverse chronology of the record where it starts with the new stuff and flows back. And I
Yeah.
think that's great for sort of the new fan or the casual fan because you start with the modern and you kind of see the twists and turns over the past 50 years. And, you were obviously a big fan of the band, but was there anything that Inside Out picked on there that really struck a chord with you? Because you're like, yeah, that was an inspired pick that I may not have thought of.
Oh gosh.
Mm,
I'm sitting here and I'm looking at the
mm,
CD. Just
mm,
thinking.
mm,
Which one did they?
mm,
And you talk about uh, how did they pick the song and pick the songs, and the one that stands out to me again. I mean, the stuff off of Absence,
mm,
I really love because uh, it's classic Kansas sound with a new energy,
mm.
with a new life. So that really stands out for me on the album.
Yeah,
And not that I'm the one singing it,
yeah,
but uh, it really shows the progression of the band, and as you listen to the music and the different band members over the course of time, and how the music has changed accordingly.
yeah, that record blew me away. I mean, I can't say enough good things about The Absence of Presence, just top to bottom. It was one of those where the very first time I heard it, I'm like, okay, this is going in constant rotation. And to this day, it still is. It's just such a wonderful record.
Yeah,
Mm,
it's so great to play Throwing Mountains like we
mm,
have for quite a while now, and just to see the anticipation in the faces of the audience, when we're playing that song, as much as when we play Fire with Fire or
mm,
Miracles Out of Nowhere. There's an excitement. You could feel the excitement, and it only goes to show that there are so many hardcore Kansas fans that have followed the band forever.
mm.
That's pretty flattering.
For me, I mean, this is a 3-disc package that covers 50 years. And I gravitate to the second disc because that's kind of when I discovered the band, I mean, that's when I really started getting into music and, in the 80s and listening to the band. And, the North American version of the collection leaves out the MCA years with Power and In the Spirit of Things, but adds a
Yeah.
couple extra tracks from Monolith and Audio Visions. And like I said, that's the period that grabs me. Is there a section because this band has had so many great runs of records that I think kind of group together and then a new group starts. Is there a period of time where as a vocalist you're like, yeah, those are the songs in my wheelhouse? Is it the earlier period, kind of that middle or, some of the later stuff?
Well, I have to say it's the Left Overture and Point of No Return,
Mhm.
coming back to back. 76, 77 was the release of those. And, of course, back then Wayward Son was on the radio. You couldn't escape it on the radio. And it was really about the time when, I was really getting into bands at a very young teenager at that point, and like discovering what I was able to do vocally. And it's like I was able to sing the Kansas stuff. It's kind of excuse me. It came to me kind of easy, and I gravitated towards that. And that was like the two big albums. But then getting so familiar with those and falling in love with not only Kansas but progressive music, but with Kansas, going back and buying the earlier albums, and that made an impact. And of course, Steve being a vocal idol of mine, but then to have the band go through the transition when John was singing, and John, what a phenomenal voice, again, in my vocal wheelhouse. And I've picked singers in my life that, or at least the singers that I liked. I'm fortunate that it was kind of like my physical makeup to emulate these singers. And I've always said, you know what? I like AC/DC, but I sing that for 10 minutes and my voice is gone for a week. My body isn't made for that. So it really is that leftoverture point of no return that really, it was like a catalyst for me, that really making me fall in love with progressive music, which, I've always been, of course, huge Kansas, yes, Genesis, Rush, I've always been a rock rocker. And outside of course, what singer doesn't appreciate Steve Perry? But it really is that time period of leftoverture point of no return that stands out for me.
Now, the 50th anniversary tour begins in June, really runs into next year. And I mean, I know it's a bit early, but have you guys any surprises being planned for that tour? A possibility of any former members of the band showing up to celebrate the anniversary?
I think that's always a possibility. I mean, not to say that he is, but whenever we play around Kansas or Topeka, Carrie still lives there, and Carrie's usually around when we play there, and what a treat that is. And Robbie joined us on stage when he was still with us, and he joined us on stage quite a few times. I know Dave Hope is down in Florida. He hasn't joined us on stage, but he'll come and hang out with us. He has a couple times. So it's cool that everyone is still in the Kansas family, but is that in the books? Is that planned that anyone's going to join us? No, that's I think that's a spur of the moment thing. If Carrie's sitting in his farmhouse, hey, Kansas is playing here tonight, I think I'll go play some guitar.
It's been 50 years, and Kansas is always a band that comes up when you talk about Rock and Roll Hall of Fame snubs. The catalog's massive. There's two songs that are literally a part of our culture and heard every day across the country. Has the band ever given a second thought to your place in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
Jeff, don't get me started. And nothing to do with me or even this version of the band. When I was a teenager and going to Greg George's music store in Elmhurst, Illinois, and all the guitar teachers had their little room, it was on every guitar teacher's curriculum to learn Dust in the Wind, because it taught you finger picking.
Yep.
It taught you how to coordinate your hands. Where have you not heard that song? The radio, the dentist office, the grocery store, everywhere you've heard Dust in the Wind. I mean, Wayward Son in many markets. I've been told Wayward Son is only number 2 to Stairway to Heaven.
Mm.
Come on. To talk about a band that has inspired musicians, with the anyone could come up and learn three chords on the guitar pretty quick. When you start getting into a Kansas level of musicianship, it really is head and shoulders above a lot of music, and that inspires a lot of musicians. I mean, isn't that how a lot of people get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Is, I mean,
Influence, yeah.
Neil Peart talks about, at his acceptance speech, he quoted Bob Dylan about, inspiring and inspiration, and that's really what music does. Is it? I mean, isn't Kansas right up there?
Mhm.
In my eyes, it is. Just the musicianship. Come on, Garth Brooks attributes Kansas, partially at least, to getting him involved in the music business.
Mhm.
Really? What else do you have to do?
Yeah.
Stand on your head and light off flares? So,
I'm with
so
you.
I
I'm
mean,
with you.
it's tough, and it's tough, and not taking away anything from who's in the Hall of Fame, but there's just been times when I've seen who's being inducted, and I'm like, and Kansas isn't?
Mhm.
Okay. So it
Yeah.
kind of loses its validity a little bit with me.
Mm.
So, but next question.
Yeah.
Don't
Well,
dwell
yeah.
on that.
Well, an equally non-controversial question: will we be seeing any new music soon?
You know, if it's one thing I learned about this band, you never know what's on the
Mm.
horizon. Because
Mhm.
Jeff, funny story. When I first met with Phil and Rich,
Mm.
and in that first meeting in Atlanta, the day before I got the job, Phil says to me, "Yeah, we're probably going to do between 45 and 60 shows a year." And I'm like, okay, that's great. I can handle that. My first full year of Kansas, 2015, we did 98 shows. And then we recorded the Prelude Implicit, went right on the road and did 99 shows the next year. So, and then, to do a new studio album was something I never expected. To do a second one, to do 2 live albums, 4 albums we've put out just since I've been in the band, so there is no telling what is going to come up for Kansas. The ball just keeps rolling.
And we're glad it does. We've been spending some time here with Ronnie Platt of Kansas. Their 50th anniversary tour kicks off in June and will take them literally all over the country. The new
Yes.
compilation is called Another Fork in the Road, 50 Years of Kansas. And Ronnie, I can't thank you enough for doing this. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk with you. And hope I can catch you live on one of these 50th anniversary dates.
Please do. I mean, this show that the classic show that we're doing is fantastic. And I mean, we are just so looking forward to the 50th anniversary show. I am so pumped about it. I don't know if you could see my keyboards here, but you could. This is where I live, and just buckling down on that show, and just the excitement every day builds about that show, and we're just gonna come and kill it. Can't wait.
Yeah. Sounds good, my friend. Thank you so much. Best of luck with everything coming up.
Jeff, thank you so much. Pleasure talking
Thank
to you.
you. You as
Stay
well.
warm.
You too. Thanks.